everybody. I'm Winnie Lamb. It's surreal to be standing 10 feet away from the amazing race car driver, Danica Patrick, and I'm thrilled that Claire Johnson is here today to do the fireside chat with Danica. There are many women Googlers who are in technical roles where there are more men than women. So we thought it would be inspiring to hear Danica's story about how she excels in the male-dominated field of race car driving. So without further ado, please help me give a very warm welcome to Danica Patrick.
Thank you, my gosh. Thank you for coming. We were just talking about how sometimes people come, sometimes people don't, and I said that the worst fear for someone like me is that you do these and nobody shows up, or you get introduced somewhere and nobody knows who you are. So thank you all for coming.
I thought it was my worst fear that I would host this and no one would be here, but you guys, nice job. We filled the room. Looks like we could have used a bigger room. So a couple things, because I know you all want to hear from Danica, just so you know about this talk. I feel really pleased, and I want to thank Winnie and Nicole and Rich and folks from the Google GoDaddy team who helped prep this. We have some great sort of slides and photos and a couple of videos to show. And we also have a bunch of questions that luckily I was prepared with to go through. We probably aren't going to have time for any live Q&A, but I have looked at the Dory. So if you have stuff on the Dory, and Maeve is going to pass me notes if something. Dory is our internal Q&A tool.
Got it.
We're all about the
okay,
tech
I was
here.
like,
so
I don't know who she is.
People can ask questions from there. She's like, I have no idea what you're talking about, but please don't bring it up here. But anyway, so we'll keep an eye on the Dory. But hopefully we'll get to most of the topics that you all have. And in full disclosure, I like to drive fast, but I do not know that much about race car driving.
Perfect.
And some
Neither do I.
of the folks in the audience may not, I think you know a lot, may not as well. So if there's a question, I may follow up and ask you to clarify if you think. Don't you want to get out of NASCAR and all the left turns sometimes? Go back to your open wheel roots?
We have a couple of road courses, but what I notice in the gym is that I'm definitely dominant pushing with my right and pulling with my left. Like, it's very out of balance when I use dumbbells and they're like independent, and I'm like, what? Yeah, nope, can't get there. So
when you pick your gowns for like the award shows, that could be an issue.
Always
shoulders.
that.
So all right,
yeah.
We're good. We're already getting into it. So just so folks if you don't know who Danica Patrick is, I'm not sure why that is, but she's the most searched for athlete, and we're a search company among other things. So certainly she's on our radar, but has been an amazing role model for women, for girls, but also for anyone who's an aspiring race car driver, and grew up in the sport and even went to Europe for some time. Which her parents let her do, which maybe we'll ask how that went, to continue her racing education and practice, and has driven with IndyCar and is now with NASCAR on the Sprint Cup Series, if I'm right about that.
Right.
And has been, I think folks know, the GoDaddy spokesperson for 13 years?
Well, been in 13 after this year, 13 Super Bowl commercials, 13. But since 2007.
Since 2007. Okay, so just a lot of Super Bowl commercials.
A lot of Super Bowl commercials,
Since 2007, and has also hosted the Country Music Awards.
Yeah, the American Country Awards. It was last month in Vegas. Yeah.
And been on the cover of like various hotshot magazines. We'll have one of them here. Sports Illustrated is one of them. ESPN magazine, right? I think I saw that one. Anyway, so and you have your own company, right? Danica Racing,
Yeah.
Your business.
I write president on it, so it makes me feel really cool when they say like title, use signature and title, and I write president.
Or like if you go through customs and they say, what's your job?
Yeah, I don't actually know what to write when it comes to that point in time. I write the same thing now, but for a long time I didn't know what to write for my job, like driver or race car driver or professional driver, automotive driver, president. I mean, that would help, I would think.
I think race car driver might be cooler than president.
I write race car driver.
I think that, I'm down with that.
Wow, you think that's cooler than president?
I do.
Well, it's probably, a lot easier.
That may be the state of politics these days. All right, anyway. So let's talk a little bit about when you knew that this was a passion of yours.
Well, I started racing go-karts when I was 10 years old, and it really was because my sister wanted to race. There I am, adorable. Yep. I still need glasses, but I wear contacts, and I'm positively blind.
And your sister was younger.
My sister's was 8 and I was 10 years
Yeah.
old, which is why my number was 10. So it was really just something to be together as a family, and I just took to it. You know, I started winning my first year, and I just about won the championship. But this kid blocked me, and I didn't know how to get around him because he drove down the inside of the straightaway. And I figured it out after that. You just push him off the end of the track, but I didn't know then. So, but I think really it came from the first year and just, you know, being successful. And I really liked practicing and getting better and seeing improvement. And I mean, we all tend to like things that we're good at, and it was something that went well pretty quickly for me. So yeah, it was really year one. I thought I would go to college for engineering, but I didn't.
We support that. We like that.
I ended up
also support the
going to
driving.
England, and I'm not sure which one was harder, which one would have been harder, England or engineering college, but I wanted to go to college for engineering so I could know how to work on my car. But I went to a different kind of college ultimately. But yeah, those are my plans at 10 years old.
So how old were you when you went to England?
I was 16.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so your family said?
Yeah, I was a junior in high school, and I wasn't really even there very much junior year. I went over to England in the first semester. I went over for 2 of the 4 months of school, and did a little bit of racing, and then I went back full time after that. So I left high school halfway through my junior year, and never looked back.
Wow. And was the thinking on that you would just get more experience and?
Yeah, it was described to me that I could learn more there in 1 year than 5 years in America, and the opportunity was there to do it. Really, what ended up happening was this person that told me that I could learn more there than in the States had followed my career then for a couple of years and contacted me when I turned 16 and said, "We've been watching you. We want to help you in your career."
Wow.
And that's when I went over to England for a little while to check things out.
This is someone in the British racing scene?
There was an English man, and then there was a Texas-based family that had been involved in racing for a long time. So they had followed my career for a couple of years, and fortunately saw me win a lot. And after that, I moved to England.
That's great. So we've gotten a few questions on our moderator tool, and certainly, as Winnie mentioned, our Women at Google group was interested in, as you were coming up through the sport and in those earlier years, I'm sure it still is the case today, but you're a little bit more established now, you were certainly contending with the fact that it was more of a male-dominated sport, although women, I think, as I understand it from the history of NASCAR, were allowed to race since 1949, not the case for the IndyCar races. But anyway, women were allowed to race, and there were some women who raced.
Yeah.
But it just really, as this happens sometimes in engineering classes, very few.
Yeah.
And for you, you've become arguably the most famous female race car driver. How was it coming up through the sport? Did you find that there were overt obstacles, or was it just occasionally an issue? Or?
I think that the big difference between me when I came along versus when some of the women in the past, in the earlier years, were there is that, take for instance my first Indy 500, it was 2005, and you had to do something called rookie orientation, which meant you had to go out and do 190 for 5 laps or 10 laps, then you had to do 200, and then you had to do 210, and then 220.
That would be miles per hour?
Yes, and so it was just a build up in the process, and so I would come in from making a run, and once you've passed your test and gone through all those speeds, then you get to practice basically. And I'd come in, and I was basically the quickest. I was the quickest car. So I would come into the pits, and everybody would be cheering. There was a huge slew of photographers and journalists in front of my car, and on the pit wall there was tons of fans behind the fence, and I was embraced in general. Sure, there's still haters, but they exist always in everything. There's always going to be people that don't like you or believe in you, but in general, very well received and embraced. And I think that's a big difference in the past, is I don't think that was there for them. Now I still, everyone has to prove themselves. There's no doubt about that. I face it as a rookie. I face it as a girl, and I face it as just a competitor, as a person trying to beat other people. So So it's always a challenge to earn respect. But I think that, there's probably a few more doubters along the way, or it may take a few extra times of proving what you do, what you can do before people really believe it. And then, of course, there are some that just never do. But it's a process. It's still going on, and I'm sure it will for a while.
And talking about the Indy 500, you were the first woman. You led for 19 laps of the Indy 500 when you were like 23 years old.
Yeah.
So did you feel like you proved it at that point? I mean,
I think that, when I got my ride in IndyCar, it came the year before at Indy, and I went to a press conference at the track, and I wasn't racing, but the team that I drove for in the lower level racing had an IndyCar team, and so I went to a press conference on Thursday before the race, and all of a sudden my boss said, and Danica's going to drive IndyCars next year, and I was like, what? I mean, I'm not going to argue, but I didn't know you were going to say that. So,
wow.
So it came pretty suddenly. But I got into my first year of IndyCar and thought, it's not a for sure thing. You still have to do it. You just getting there is not there. You need to do some good things and establish yourself and get some roots in the sport and have proper support from sponsors. And after that Indy 500, there was a certain level I felt a little better after that.
Yeah, I mean, you clearly had earned your way.
It was definitely a pivotal year, and it was a magical month, and it was full of highs and lows, and the lows were really just that I was running out of energy to do interviews, but that's a good problem to have.
Yeah, luckily we're catching her at the beginning before the season starts.
This is my first day of work, everyone, this year.
Right. That's true for a lot of us as well.
Is it? Okay,
We've all been
welcome back.
on the holidays.
High on sugar from the holidays? Yeah.
Exactly. So then you won the IndyCar race in Japan.
Yeah.
And did that feel like, how big a deal was that, or was it not a big deal because you'd already kind of made it in IndyCar?
Well, I mean, it's something that I even said it back then in 2008 that felt long overdue for me. There was opportunities that were probably even better to win along the way that didn't happen versus that day. So it was, but there was another driver told me that year at some point. He said, you know what? One day you're going to be doing just the same thing that you've been doing every day, and you're going to win. And that's exactly what happened. You're doing the same thing that you do every day. And so it was a feeling of relief. And for the casual fan or the casual consumer, first place and winning is very easy to understand.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of nice from that perspective. And there was a lot of talk and argumentative sort of points about I haven't won, and so it did take care of that. And of course,
checked off that box.
Yeah. So I mean, I wanted to win a lot more than that, and there were opportunities, but it seemed like my talent as a driver in IndyCar was going like this, and my cars kind of went like this. So they didn't really interject at the right point, but they did kind of right at 2008.
That's interesting.
So, it's a lot about, your equipment is really important too. Your equipment is very important. I don't know, it's the chicken before the egg. What is it? Is it the driver? Is it the car? Well, you really can't have one without the other. So if things aren't where they need to be there, then the best driver can't take a bad car.
We kind of have that with computing power, right?
Sure,
It's
absolutely.
like
You're only as good as your resources, your technology, your coworkers, your brainstorming, your motherboard.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that
your core, your chip core?
Yeah,
whatever.
that's it. Chip it up.
Yeah,
Chip me up.
That's what I'm saying. So when you just about back to the male-dominated thing, I have found, and I think some of the female engineers, hopefully, or some of them are in the room, might have found sometimes the situation is you don't get the respect, and you talked a little bit about that, and then you earn it, and maybe it takes a little bit longer. And the other situation is maybe you get too much attention where you're just a person doing a job, right? And I think for you, it's probably frustrating. I mean, you've gotten a lot of attention, I think, as a driver, but maybe a little bit more sometimes as a female race car, and particularly being the first woman to do some of the things. We're going to talk about a few of them as well.
And that does happen. It's a double-edged sword. When you are different or outside of the box and people are paying attention, you do something good or kind of good and people realize it. You do something bad or kind of bad and people realize that too. So, so it's a double-edged sword. But I mean, I'll take it because, you know, there's times where I finish 4th and it makes big news and that doesn't happen for anyone else. So, you know, they're noticing the little things along the way a little bit more that, you know, it happened in my first year or, you know, something like that. Something a little bit unique about it sticks out. And and because I'm a girl and I'm different and these things haven't been done before. So, so it's, you know, all I know is that in my career, I work really hard. And I know that when I've done everything possible on and off the track to perform, then people's opinions or judgments can't affect me.
Do you, in fact, drive? I mean, when you work hard, you've got a lot of, I think, physical conditioning you probably have to do. And then do you have to drive a lot?
For my physical conditioning?
For both. I mean, how do you stay in shape for driving like 200 miles
in a calculated fashion? I do make a lot of people mad on the road. I'm sorry about that.
I meant more in a contained environment.
No, I mean...
like on the track. I mean, do you go and drive every day?
Yeah, well, there's testing and practice or whatever you want to call it. We call it testing. You know, this Thursday and Friday, we'll be at Daytona getting ready for the Daytona 500 at the end of March. So you do some of that. I wouldn't say that, you know, the real conditioning comes in the season when you get in the car and you get racing every single weekend. And we have 2 weekends out of our we have 38 races and 2 weekends off. So we race all year. I mean, it just feels like we race all year. And then we get like 5 minutes off and then you're right back at it again.
Wow.
So it's it goes pretty hard for sure. But I mean, I think that, do you have to be the fittest person in the world to drive a race car? No, but you do have to be fit. And you do have to be kind of race fit, as we call it, which is there's a lot of repetition, there's a lot of heat, there's a lot of adrenaline, and it's about being able to control all that and keep cool and literally keep cool in your head and, you know, not grip the wheel so hard and be conditioned for the repetition too.
And the repetition, meaning because you don't want to zone out, because you got to keep.
Well,
really...
it's this and this and this
literally.
And this and this and this. So it's, you know, and when the car is not balanced right, it's not just a matter of turning the wheel. It's a matter of turning the wheel and feeling what it's doing and catching it all the way around the corner. So you're tensed up the whole time.
Wow.
And then even down the straightaway, the car wants to turn left. It has stagger. It wants to turn left. So you still have to hold it down the straightaway, but in the corner you kind of release and let it in, and then you're just chasing it through the corner. Or you're adding a whole bunch of wheel because it won't turn, and then your shoulder gets like an impingement, and that's not good either.
Wow.
I know.
And by the way, speaking of the heat, I'm all worried because I was like, the room is a little warm. She's looking at me like,
no, those cars are probably, I mean, the cars are probably 130 degrees inside the whole time. Yeah.
So you must sweat off like 10 pounds riding in those races.
It's really awesome.
But then you eat like one Big Mac.
Before we started, we were just talking about like holidays and being in shape, and I said that by nature that my job is athletic, and I, if not, I just sweat it off, right? So, but by the end of the season, I'm always like my fittest and leanest, because every weekend you're in the car, you know, 3 days a week minimum. I was in the car. I tested on average every other week for 2 days every other week, I would say on average. So I'm in the car almost 5 days a week most of the time. So. And then the races are 4 hours long. So, you know, the pit stop isn't like a pit stop down the road for, you know, a candy bar and an energy drink.
No smoothie, no Starbucks.
I do drink something with calories, but it's not
like those gel things or whatever.
No, it's like a pre-mixed shake stuff.
Really?
So yeah, but it's by no means a meal.
Wow. All right. Well, speaking of doing a ton of racing. One of that we wanted to show a video. Oh, look, and there you are, winning, as you won a lot. But one of the videos we wanted to show was, it's kind of a long video, guys, but it was an exciting historic event, which was, she's the first woman to win the pole position, and this was at the Daytona 500. So we're going to watch that video for a couple minutes, and then we'll talk about it. So
that happens the week before the race. So when's the race? The Daytona 500 is usually like the 3rd or 4th, February 23rd this year. So it'll be
the
week before that on Saturday.
So in about a month or so. And while you're you're just doing your job there, but are you thinking, I'm making history right now, I'm making history right now? Are you thinking, I just need to get pole position? Or what was your...
I mean, I'm just thinking about taking the car and taking it to its potential level and not wasting its potential by making a little mistake and missing a shift, getting up to speed, or clipping the apron when you're going around the corner, because the car doesn't just go just dead straight. It kind of follows the road, and it pulls, and it moves. So, you know, it's not hard. Daytona's not the hardest track at all to drive, but you just the little things. It's, you know, I'm not going to be able to take the car at Daytona and take it from a 15th place car to a pole car. But I can screw it up and lose the pole for sure by making little mistakes on the track, by not getting up to speed right, not taking the right line, as in letting the car open up and pick up speed, because every time you hold wheel on it, it's going to scrub speed and slow it down. But you also want the shortest distance, so there's a little marriage between letting it open up off the corner to build up momentum, but also running a short distance so that you're not adding feet onto your lap and making a longer lap. So just little things like that, and catching the apron. You're trying to be as low as you can on the corner, but the track has a transition point, and at that transition point, if the car bottoms out, the bodywork will hit it and scrub a bunch of speed off the car. So just little things like that. But I'm not really thinking about history.
Yeah, basically your answer is you're doing your job.
Yeah, I'm doing my job. Yeah, absolutely.
You're looking to win is what you're doing.
Yes,
and
exactly.
That's a good answer.
And I just, watching qualifying is painful as a driver, because after you go, there's literally nothing else that you can do to make it better. It could only get worse. So,
and you got to hang around there and watch
so
it?
So you kind of, I went and worked out, actually. Yeah, I was like, what do I do? And I went back to the bus and got my gym clothes on and went into the gym and worked out and watched qualifying. And I was still in the gym when the last cars were qualifying, and my PR people kept coming in and saying, you need to get ready. You need to get ready. You're going to be on the pole. I'm like, I'm not getting out of these clothes until I see that car pass the line and I know I'm on the pole, because I'm not jinxing this. So
good for you.
I forgot to eat then too. So me with no food is no good. It's no good. Any girls in here that feel me on that? Seems to be more of a girl issue. So I didn't eat lunch because I went and worked out, and then I had to go do all the interviews for hours and hours afterwards. So I had to, I probably kept Brian Williams waiting, but I had to eat a sandwich at some point in time. So, but it was exciting. It was a lot of fun, and it was really neat to see, number 10 at the top of the boards. And it's cool just to have number 10 back, really, because it was my go-kart number, as you guys saw. So I got to choose that number. So it's really neat to have my old number back.
When you went to NASCAR, you got to choose?
When I went to Stewart-Haas Racing in Sprint Cup, I got to choose my number, yeah. So
that's great.
Yeah, a little... it's
that's a factoid for us.
Yeah.
That's good. So you are one of the only 13 drivers who's led laps in both the Indy 500 and the Daytona 500.
So I think that's probably the coolest statistic to me.
Is it? I wanted to ask you about that. Is that, again, remembering I don't know that much about race car driving. So is that just totally different kinds of racing, and to be at the top of your game in both of them is pretty amazing? I
mean, they both have the same elements, but they're just newly learned disciplines. So, it's like, I don't know how to relate it. It's like a whole new computer system, and it's like, all right, I got to figure this out, but it's all the same
different
sort of ideas.
Language.
It's just trying to figure it out all over again, and you'll get it, but it just takes a little bit of time, and so it's the same thing. So, I thought that's the coolest statistic, to be one of 13 drivers that have in history that have led Daytona and Indy. That's pretty neat.
And why are those two races just such a big deal? I mean, as you said,
they're
the Daytona
oldest.
track
They're some of the oldest.
The oldest, got it.
Indy's about 100 years old, and Daytona's about 50 years old.
And they get great TV coverage and all that
They
stuff.
do. There's a lot that goes around them. Qualifying is the weekend before for both of them. So qualifying happens. There's a lot of media around that, and then it kind of goes all the way through the week into the race weekend. So yeah, they generally have a culture of fun. I mean, there's a lot of campsites and people that hang out and bonfire and set up tiki bars and play cornhole and
Yeah, it's a whole...
fly their Dale Jr. flags, and some of them have Danica flags.
We're going to get more Danica flags. So let's switch to talking a little bit about things that are related to what you do, but teamwork, advice you might have, dealing with criticism. I mean, one of the things you've already talked about, and I think people here might relate, is sometimes it feels like you've got this repetitive stuff and you got to stay focused. And you're also dealing with a lot of scrutiny, as you said, maybe a little bit more being a woman. What advice would you have to people just who are facing obstacles, who need to kind of maintain their focus and their confidence, even when day in and day out they may not be getting the rewards that they are hoping to get for their work product?
I mean, I think the difference between someone who ultimately is successful and someone who isn't is just getting up and trying again. And I feel like I've seen that in my life again to other people, is that things get hard and people try again, and things get hard and people might try again, might not, and then things get hard and they just don't try again. And giving up is can't be an option. And I think that goes back to the core of making sure that whatever it is you're doing is something that you love to do, something that you enjoy, something that maybe if you didn't even get paid, would you still do it? And I think that's what pulls you through those times ultimately, but and that's what keeps you coming back for more, and that's what that passion and that love for what it is that you do is what keeps you going.
So would you say your resilience and that persistence is because you love what you do so much, or is there something about your parents or anything in your upbringing? Do you think it's...
I mean, I think that genetically I have I'm determined, because my dad was very much like that, for sure, very persistent and determined. But I think it's also because I found something that I love to do. And there's plenty of other stuff that I've done that I didn't keep doing. I mean, I didn't keep playing basketball, let's face it. But I kept racing. And so it was about finding that, I feel, and finding it really young. I'm very fortunate that I found it really young. And I tell everyone, young or old, is just, if you could do anything in the world, what would you do? Well, why can't you do that then? At least start. At least just try to make an effort at doing it. You're not going to get there within one shot, but you just got to take baby steps and opportunities along the way. And I feel like, especially like people get out of college and they have this idea of what they want to do and they're holding out until they get it. Just get going. Just get working and get the experience and start working your way there.
I think that's great advice. So you've said what makes you different makes you great. Where does that advice come from when you talk to people?
Well, I mean, I think that the most obvious one really, obviously, is being a girl. So when I was younger and like living in England and kind of early teen years, I don't think I didn't care that I was a girl. I just didn't want to make it real obvious. I mean, I didn't want it to stand out. I didn't wear nail polish, because when I talk about the race car, I didn't want them looking at my hands and seeing pink fingernails. I didn't, wear pink and purple and make it really flashy and obvious. No hearts and bows, and just kind of wanted to blend in.
You're describing my 7-year-old daughter.
Am I really? Hearts and bows, or didn't want to wear hearts and bows?
She's now rejecting them, but she was all in them. So.
Well, you go through these phases where you feel comfortable and sometimes you don't, and I didn't really feel comfortable making it obvious. And so it really was, I came back from England when I was 19, and I let myself kind of go there to be a girl a little bit, and it really came from a kind of racy photo shoot that I did, that it was more girly of me, and it just all of a sudden stuff started happening, and people were contacting me, and sponsors and teams, and but nobody questioned what I could do. It wasn't like people didn't think I could race, or their opinion really changed on that. Maybe they had opinion on what I did, but it didn't change the opportunity to be able to do what I wanted to do. It just really was opening doors, and it was allowing it, it was me being able to tap into something that was part of my personality. I mean, I think we're not one-dimensional people. We have all kinds of different sides to us. We're not, I don't just race and I don't just work on cars. I race and I like to cook and I like to travel and I like to look pretty and I like to get dressed up and I like hair and makeup and I like all those other things. So it was kind of a way for me to, it was an extension of me, but it was celebrated. So
success came to you as you embraced who you were.
Exactly. So, sometimes I really feel that whatever it is that's the most different about you is probably the most important and the most special and the most useful.
I once had a boss who, we worked in consulting and we'd go and talk to clients and I was usually the only woman in the room. And he said, whenever you say something, everyone is going to be listening because you're different than everyone else in the room.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah. And
Exactly.
I think you're right on there. I like it.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the team. You mentioned this a little bit. You've got a whole team you work with. You've also got the car and the technology of the car. What kind of role, how important is that team for your success? And how do you work with them? What's your role in the team?
I mean, the team is critical. Obviously, I mean, like you need a bus driver. You got to get a truck driver to get the car there. You've got to get guys that put the tires on, of course. So there's a whole bunch of steps in the process, and it can't happen without the other. But I think more importantly, with team for me is about morale. It's about attitude. It's about your mood and keeping everyone in a good mood. Like all those guys that you see right there, we see each other every weekend of the year pretty much. And so, that can wear on you and it can get exhausting. That's the family vacation.
There's your family, but you had that whole team of
so that's
guys
my crew
behind
chief
the
on the
car.
left. He's kind of the other co-team leader with me. But, the two of us dictate the mood of the entire team. And you really have to, being a leader is also being a cheerleader. And it's very important. So I think that, team is a lot of attitude.
And then is your family with you a lot? We saw them all on the plane.
Yeah, that was right. That was the day after the season ended. We went on vacation. So that's Ricky's and family and my family. So
Do they go out for all those 38 weekends or whatever?
they go out for between the two families, we see them quite a bit. And we have two buses, so like our family will stay on my bus, or his family will stay on my bus, and we'll stay on Ricky's bus. And it's like we have a total fancy campground. We just open our buses up together, open up the tents. We've got picnic tables.
You're making
grills.
me want a bus.
Yeah. Yeah, no, family's really important. And I think that, as an extension of your mood, family plays a role in that too. If your home life isn't good, that tends to bleed over and vice versa. So, keeping everything in order and being happy is really important, I think, for success.
You talked a little bit, I agree. I think that is great. It seems like having that support system plus
I think I got to cheer for the Colts. We were at a Colts game. I mean, I'm a Bears fan, but I don't know anymore. We haven't been doing so well.
Yeah, I was
The
going to
Colts
say
are
that.
on their way. Did anybody see them come back
Yeah.
28 points down
That
at
was-
half? That was pretty impressive.
I'm a
I don't know if they
Pats
beat a
fan.
California team or not, but I'm sorry. But
We have to get off this topic.
I did watch the game, but I'm still a girl. I still don't always remember all the details about it.
Me neither, but I like it.
I do too. I love football.
I love football. All right, so talking about, not related to the NFL, but
Anybody watch the GoDaddy Bowl last night?
yes.
Maybe next year.
But you went from NFL to college. You confused me for
I
a second.
did, and
All right.
I did.
But that was a good segue for what I needed was sponsorship and brand building.
Yes.
So let's talk about it. So you yourself are, it's kind of an interesting thing for you. You're a brand. You've got Danica Racing. You've got your name is basically a brand. You've got your sponsorship relationship with GoDaddy and some other companies. But how did you ever actively think about? You almost mentioned this when you talked about the photo shoot and how things started to happen for you. Did you ever think I'm building a brand here? When did you realize that, or when did you start to think that way?
It took a while for sure. I think that the idea of brand and the idea of role model took a little while to set in because it all seems so new. I'm like, I don't know, I'm just driving. And I'm trying to figure myself out. But I've been really fortunate in my career. I've had great sponsors along the way, and GoDaddy being the best, where I can be myself. They stand behind me no matter what, and they have great core values, and they've done some really great stuff, and continue to. And so brand is very important. In this day and age, especially with social media and everything like that, we're all reading through authenticity pretty quickly and easily. I think you can tell what's real and what's not real. And if there's anything that I want to do, it's be real and be believable. Be someone that you can trust, and someone that that you look at what I'm doing and you believe in it. And so I've been lucky enough to be able to be selective over the years with my partners, and I've got great ones, and they're extensions of who I am.
Yeah. Are there other things that come to your mind when you think about what you hope everyone relate?
Other than fast?
Fast,
it's probably
good one.
Well, back in 2009, I signed on with IMG, which is now William Morris. But we sort of created a brand statement or a brand sort of title for me, and it was Beautiful Revolution. And it was really just about being able to be feminine, be who you are, but yet be different. And so that's kind of like the sort of statement for my brand. Yeah.
And were you an active participant in that whole
Absolutely,
process?
yeah. There was
cool.
there was all these sort of storyboards going on and photos of me doing certain things, like categorized, just stuff from the internet, and it kind of like built a story of what really stands out about me in the public eye and what people are paying attention to. And then words start to get developed from those storyboards and from those collages, and then it kind of keeps whittling down to a sort of title.
Wow, cool. So I think we have a picture of you at the Country Music Awards, and
the American Country
American
Awards.
Country Awards.
Oh
I'm
my
sorry.
gosh, that's the best shot I've seen of the height difference.
If we have time,
I have boots
if we have
on.
time later, we'll show a funny video from this. But we're going to run short on time. But I wanted to ask you about when you do stuff like this, when you make these choices. Besides, they don't let you choose your co-host, I guess, or your co-presenter.
No, he was great.
So tall. How do you think about your brand, or you think about what's fun for you, or whether you have time in your schedule?
Absolutely. I think about things that are fun. So I don't know. Does anybody listen to country music in here?
Oh, look at
Not
that.
many. I'm not surprised. We're in California. It's okay. But
true.
I know there's some of you out there. So it was one of those things, country music, it just happened for me. I never, ever listened to it, and my dad always said it feels like I'm kissing a horse when I listen to this stuff, and I just... So, like, my upbringing, which I feel like dictates who we are. It's seeing your parents and seeing the way you grew up is an explanation, not an excuse. You are who you are because of your family. And my dad hated country music, so I never listened to it. And so I got to NASCAR, and I mean, GAC is on the TV, and it's all country bumpkin music, and I just wasn't having any of it. And finally, I just started. I did a music video with Miranda Lambert, and it was called "Fastest Girl in Town." And I had not heard her song.
She seems pretty cool.
She is very cool, but I hadn't heard her song, and it was already out on the radio, so I felt kind of bad. So I thought I'll get her albums, and she had just started a new band with 2 other girls, and they're called the Pistol Annies. So I got that too, and I listened to them, and I was like, I think I like country music, and it just happened like that. And now it's pretty much all I listen to. So when the American Country Awards asked me to co-host the show, I'm like, you mean present, right? No, co-host. Okay, so
That's
it was
a
a
lot of
huge
work.
undertaking, and I'm extremely decisive. You don't have to ask twice. You might have to tell me something twice because I forget, but you don't have to ask a question twice. And my agent asked me if I wanted to do it, and he's like, this is a big deal. This is a definite yes. And I'm like, I'm going to need to call you back. And in the past, he would tell me, call me back and let me know. And I would say, Alan, the only thing I'm going to do is forget to call you back. I already know the answer. And so I told him, I'm like, I think I'm going to need to call you back on this one. And I kind of asked around about what people thought. Basically, did anybody think I could handle this? So I said yes, and it was...
Because that's like multiple hours of being up on that stage.
Yeah, it's a shorter country show, but it's 2 hours, and you're co-hosting, so it's important. And I ended up singing and dancing on the show, and it was I wore a showgirl outfit at one point in time. you should have seen the number they wanted me to wear first. I sort of tempered it to feel comfortable.
Good
but
for you.
Because you got to feel comfortable.
Right.
And of course, that's the photo that makes the magazine and the newspaper.
Yeah.
But it went great. It was a lot of fun. And more than anything, it was about having an experience and growing as a person and doing something outside of my comfort zone. I'm much more comfortable answering questions than I am reading a prompter and having to do something pre-programmed. So
that's actually, I mean, back to the advice, and we'll close and we'll talk a little bit about internet and small businesses and things. But when you're thinking about, you really stretched yourself, right? You did something you weren't that comfortable doing.
Yeah.
Where do you?
I mean, I've always wanted to be a singer, but I'm not. So.
But you sang on the show.
I sang a line.
Where does that come from? I mean, if you're talking to people in the room here who are thinking of trying something new or doing something different.
I mean, I think that's the only way you grow, and that's the only way you can start to learn your real capabilities. And, you know, what I've learned over the years with me is that trying new things ends up usually going pretty well. And, you know, that's where you start to get more confidence in yourself. And if anything, you just learn something. And you have an experience, and life is about experiences. And if something exciting comes your way, just say yes, you know, just try something new and not be afraid. And the worst thing you do is fail and you just don't do it anymore. Or you try again. New experiences are how you grow. And I think that goes back to the core of like even just living in a new country when I was 16. I grew up so fast because I did that. And it's about doing things that are outside of your comfort zone and something you would not do.
That's great. So speaking of things that are about building businesses and brands and doing some new things, one of the things that is not new for you is your relationship with GoDaddy, but we're going to talk a little bit about the commercial this year and sort of the internet and small businesses. In your own brand building and business building, how important has the internet been? You mentioned social media, you mentioned people really being able to smell whether something's authentic or not. Do you use technology? Do you use any Google products? Do you use technology a lot?
I Google myself. Is that bad?
No, that's not bad.
I Google my name and Ricky's name, and I look for new photos of us. Because we get candid ones taken at the track, and I never see them, you know? So, I mean...
I do not have pictures of me and my husband on the internet.
But I will say that Google is the only thing I've ever used for search engine. Always.
Oh, we're very happy to hear that. Thank you. Okay, that was a shameless Google question. But
that's the truth.
You must think about, do you think about building businesses online or the work that GoDaddy does with small businesses? How do you think about that? Or are you kind of separate from their business?
Where I came from, I mean, my first Indy 500 in 2005, you know, my website shut down because there was too much traffic. It couldn't handle it. I don't know. The server wasn't big enough. We didn't see that coming. So
that taught you a lesson.
It taught me a lesson in 2005 about being prepared, but also about you know, how much interest there is there.
Yeah.
And like you said, I'm usually like one of the more searched athletes, and so internet is a huge source of how we learn about things, how we maybe choose to cheer for something, choose to like something. I mean, I use it all the time for everything. I mean, GoDaddy is all about small businesses, and for me, that taps right into me. I mean, I'm finding like new gyms to go to because I'm always on the road, a restaurant, a store, you name it, a hotel. I need locations, I need hours, and if you're not on the internet, I can't find you. So I use the internet constantly, and it's been a source of how I've gotten to where I am today, and it can also be a source for someone else to see their dreams come true too by making themselves relative. I feel like if you're not on the internet, you're not relevant in this day and age.
Yeah, and so we agree. Thank you for saying that. Well, no, we'd love to see more businesses get online, and we're thrilled that GoDaddy does so much work to help them. When you think about your relationship with GoDaddy, I mean, you've been in the most Super Bowl commercials of any celebrity or some stat like that, which is kind of wild to think about.
It is kind of weird.
And that's since 2007, right?
It's like 100 million people every time. That's crazy.
That's a lot. Yes, there's a lot of eyeballs, a lot of impressions. When you think about, and then you've got the YouTube, people watching it all over again, which we see a lot of. When you think about how their advertising has evolved and what they're planning now for this year, I don't know how much you're allowed to talk about it, but you've grown up together. Do you work together on the creative concepts, or do you just show up and they're like, here's the plan? How does it work?
A little bit of both, but there's always that trump card of like, I don't like that. There's always has been, and we both respect each other, and so it's been a great relationship from the very beginning.
So anything you can tell us about this year's ad? Or?
No, not really. I mean, I think there was some photos
I heard
that got
it's
out
different.
there.
I heard it's different.
Yeah, there's 2 of them. I'm in one of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they're talking about getting found online.
Yeah.
I've been told that much.
Yeah, well, it's all about that. And, you know, it's definitely about showing women now in a really powerful way of being small business owners, being confident, and trying to see their dreams come true. And so so I like that. I mean, like I completely relate to that. So
do you think of yourself as an owner, business owner?
I guess,
you talked about you're the president.
I mean, I guess I do more so now. I think about it. And I think about it in the long term of like at some point in time I won't be racing anymore, and then what am I going to do? So, you know, building the brand up to a certain point and then maybe branching off so that when I retire from racing, I'm probably not going to be 65. I'll still have something fun to do outside of racing. So yeah. Do
you have advice for women in business when you think about yourself as a businesswoman or your future? Anything you've learned? You've given a lot of great advice, actually, this whole talk.
Well,
but when you think about the business side of it.
I mean, I think that, you know, first and foremost, it's making sure that it is something that you love doing. But then it's about confidence. I mean, I remember being a kid and going into a business meeting, and I said a lot of I thinks and maybes and likes. And it's about being poignant, confident, you want this is what's going to happen, and being aggressive with your words. And I think that's something to always keep in mind, is to just be confident through the whole process. And the way that at least I've generated confidence is by doing my homework and being smart about something. And knowledge is power. And those old commercials when I was a kid watching Sunday morning cartoons, knowledge is power, and stars flew across the screen. It's true. It's true. You can't be in full control and know everything if you and do a good job unless you really do your homework and know what you're asking for or what you're trying to accomplish. So confidence and doing your homework.
Yeah, you sound like you're someone who works a lot on being well prepared. I mean, you must have prepared for this thing a lot.
It was okay. Quick little story. So I got there to Vegas, and it was like 4 or 5 days before the show. I didn't have anything yet. I saw the opening. The cold opening was a pre-tape, and I had seen that, but I saw nothing else. So it's just how it works, because the writers that do all the shows, they do all the shows. So they came off of a show that had just aired a couple weeks earlier, and then they started writing the ACAs. So it was like, you don't really have content. So it kind of scared me. So it wasn't until we went into our first rehearsal the show was on Tuesday. Saturday we went and read prompter and did blocks or whatever it is, and we went through all the different. We read the script on the prompter, and I had never seen the script, and I'm like I'm reading it on the prompter for the very first time, and so it was a mild disaster, and so I mean, words like a bad rehearsal is a good sign for a good show, they were telling me. And I'm like, shoot. So it was a whole new experience of like, it was like cramming for a test, as if I ever did that. But it was solid Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday of line reads and going over things. I mean, I had to do a dance routine, so I would just stop, drop, and roll. I would just do it on the spot, just so that I could know I didn't need to think about the dance. And you know, it was just all about repetition. So it was like cramming for those days,
so you
completely.
Did prepare, but it was intense.
Oh man, I mean, my calves hurt from doing that little dance so much. It was only 17 seconds, but it was long enough for my calves to hurt for 3 days.
Yeah, you couldn't get me to dance for 5 seconds.
But it was great because I was by far outside of my comfort zone, but it was really fun.
That is great. So a couple final questions. When you think about all your balancing, you're an entrepreneur, a race car driver, obviously. You've done things like this. You've got your family that you spend a lot of time with. How do you balance all those competing priorities? Do you have sort of a framework in your head, or you just take it as it comes?
Yeah, I think you have to take some of it as it comes because sometimes it's new. But
right.
for me, it's definitely been a little bit of trial and error. And as your life changes and evolves and gets bigger, essentially, I feel like the older you get, there's more to manage and balance. And you have to find out what your own rhythm is, how you like to operate in your day, how you like to prioritize things. Do you like to bunch your schedule up? Do you like to spread it out? Do you need to make sure there's lunches? I mean, down to all those kinds of things. Just how do you like to run your day? And so I've sort of figured out what that is. Now, mind you, I mean, I was pretty exhausted by the end of that show in December and the rest of the stuff I had to do in December. But, you know, sometimes you have to bend a little, but you just can't get to the point that you break. If you break, then that's where the problems start, and then it sort of breaks everything else down. So it's okay to say no. And as long as it comes from a good, honest place of like, I'm not going to be good for this situation if I say yes, or good for myself, or good for my family, then you just say no. And you move on and know that you're better for it. And, you know, find those little things that make you happy along the way, whether it's like going to get a pedicure or a massage, or for me, just sitting down and playing, you know, Candy Crush, you know, just whatever it is.
Is that on your mobile phone?
It is.
Candy Crush?
Ricky and I are always competing against who's ahead of who.
Aha.
I'm behind right now.
So you gotta get done with this and do some Candy Crush.
Yeah.
So on the final thing, you mentioned for your team that you focus a lot on morale and being someone who keeps them motivated and up. When you think about leadership and being a role model, which you said came to you, kind of you realized, wow, you are a role model, by the way.
Thanks.
I have a colleague here who brought her daughter because her daughter wrote a paper about you, I think. How do you carry that sort of responsibility? Being, you know, what kind of leader are you? How do you think about being a leader? How do you think about being a role model? Is that hard to have to think about all the time?
I think that it's about being yourself, and then you can really never screw up. And I always encourage everyone, whether they're young or old, to, you know, do what you love to do and be who you are. And then you can't ever make a mistake along the way. You just are being who you are. And, you know, if I get fiery and intense at the racetrack, I'm not shocking you. I've done this before, but that's who I am. And if you don't like it, at least you can respect it. So that's kind of how I operate in my days and my life.
When did you realize that you just have to be who you are?
I think that it just grows over time. I think it's grown over time to realize that you can be different and it's okay, and that you can have an opinion. And in fact, I'm a consumer for sure. And when I watch things or people, I don't just want to watch people telling me what I'm supposed to be hearing. I want to see them be honest and raw and real. And maybe it sounds like what I want to hear, but maybe it doesn't. And I respect them for that. So, you know, I like just people to be who they are, and the differences are what make us interesting.
All right, final thing. It's the new year. Any big goals for this year?
To be the most Googled athlete.
I think you already did that. You already did that.
Okay, to be the most Googled athlete, at least today.
All right.
I want the whole one, actually.
You're all there. But no, any races, anything, any race
I mean,
car
it's my
driving
second
thing?
year in the Sprint Cup Series. It's by no means makes me a veteran at all, but for me, it's about progression, and I don't think that you can ever know exactly, you know, where you should be or what you should want, and it's good to set goals, but it's also, for me, I feel good to just set progression goals and know that I'm getting better. And when I look back over the last month, am I better? Over the last 6 months, am I better? And of course, my ultimate goals are I want to win races. I want to run in the top 15 as much as possible. You know, I want another Daytona 500 pole, and I want to win the whole race.
All right. Well, thank you so much. This was
Thank
great.
you. Thank you. Thank you for coming, everybody.